So I'm going to talk about why I chose how to present my Africana timeline the way I did. First, we started off with some of the resources that we got from the beginning of the class, the YouTube videos, the about Benin and about ancient Africa and its lost culture. And then what's important about that is because that's the beginning point. That's the big part of what a lot of people are missing when we talk about our history. And because a lot of us start from slavery, and when we start from slavery, we don't go far back enough to where the juice is, the part that really helps us move forward. So that was the reason why I chose that. And then we chose to speak about slavery. That was actually from our Black Studies book from Michael Washington. He has some really good information in there. We also used some of the information from the article from 1619 that discussed a lot about like the Pope and his influence on allowing slavery to progress. I thought that was amazing. I didn't know that. And then also we found out about the wealth. I mean, we hear about cotton, picking cotton, but sugar and cotton and how it was just a commodity that was used to build wealth, and also all the things that people of African descent were making, that was also continuing to make money for what we know now as the power elite. I also chose to add in an earlier introduction to Black Studies book I had from Malana Karenga. I had taken this years ago and I picked up this book. I found that I still had it, and he talked a lot about sociology and economics, and politics, and middle class in a different way that I hadn't heard of before. So I thought I would include that information with my PowerPoint. And then I went back to the Black Studies book because Michael Washington had some really good information on the psychology. I was able to learn about Linda James Myers, Naim Akbar, some people I hadn't heard of before that have been instrumental on having us figure out what can help us. And it's interesting too, because we have lack of resources of financial gain and actual power for decision making, the mental and psychological part is something that's not necessarily kept from us, that can't really be kept from anyone. Partly how we've been conditioned through other processes that's affected how we've been able to move forward, but that's something that's available to anyone. It's not necessarily a magic pill, or it's not going to just happen all of a sudden, but with time and effort, it's something that can help someone. So that brings an effect too. So Linda James Myers, I actually was able to get one of her books and really explore that. And it has some great information. I was also able to read some studies for her, but for this PowerPoint, there's actually a book that she has. It's called Understanding Afrocentric Worldview and Introduction to Optimal Psychology. I've studied self-help stuff before, but it's interesting to take this view of it where it's just what's geared towards Africana people, but it's actually also useful for anyone because we all came from the same place. We have just diverged from there. Africana people were the first civilization. And lastly, I spoke about George Lakoff, his book, Don't Eat the Elephant, and what he discusses is language and also culture, and that's kind of what I mentioned in my PowerPoint was the cultural aspect and the language. Basically what happens is whenever you having discussions with people, there's always the underlying process of what that words mean, because words can mean different things in different contexts. But what's important when people do have arguments or they want to have discussions, it's important to realize where you're coming from. And what he explained is like, the difference between conservatives and liberals is that conservatives have spent a lot of time defining who they are as a political party. And because of that, they become stronger and stronger. I'm sure there was probably a point where they were more equal to the Democrats or to the liberals. And at some point, as they started really deciding who they were, what they were going to stand for, it helped them make decisions. So it's so well put together that when you have people that are indecisive and really don't know what they do, they gravitate towards that party. Now, oftentimes you'll find that the liberals would actually provide better options for a lot of those indecisive people and a lot of people in general, which is kind of the conservative and liberal discussion really mirrors the Africana issue, where you have people that want things to stay the same, which is an established culture. There's not much change required, and that's why a lot of people that are indecisive of what they would want to do, they keep doing the same thing that they've always done. It's just so established. In order for there to be a different outcome and something else happen, there would have to be a strong culture really defining what those actions would be, what it's going to look like, what kind of vocabulary you're going to use, which is a big part of the problem. When we discuss things from a point of view on a culture created, it's easy to draw people in, where it's like, we know what we want, but we can't necessarily explain what it is. So that was some of the importance of George Lakoff, and that's why I wanted to add him into the discussion. But really, in the end, what we're going to need is milestones to really decide what we're doing. We want to end some of the health disparities. We want to move towards optimal health. So not just not having health problems, but so being great and living a great quality of life. Then also, we want to get rid of the economic disparities. We want people to have be able to do what they need to, have basic resources, and we want to have also successful businesses, and then power in actually being able to make decisions. That's something that should be dispersed more evenly, and I was glad to learn about this aspect of it, and look forward to learning more. This is Lawrence Green, and thank you very much.